I'd love to present a slightly contrary view. So at the risk of being booed off the stage, I think just we need to take a little bit of a step back and think about that things might be a bit dire for the UK economy, actually. If you add up the UK public debt and the private debt and what the ratio is to GDP, we owe, as a country, it's about 291%, i.e. we owe 3 times as much as we can produce in a year. A couple of years ago, when we were meant to be, a lot worse off, it was 294%. So we're only just coasting down. We're now about on a par with Greece, just to give you an idea of how indebted we are. So that deleveraging process in the UK is going to take a long time. The GDP figures that were out this week, 0.5% growth in GDP, people thought that wasn't a bad result. Actually, if you think about it, compare it to the Great Depression, we're 14 quarters into the sort of after the recession. The same period, and our GDP is still 4% below where it was at the peak. So actually, we're worse off than we were in terms of a recovery than we were in the Great Depression. So when any of the sort of old timers in your business or your parents say that, it's not as bad as it was in my day, you can say, well, actually, that's not quite true. Things are quite bad. So enough of the gloom. I think there's a lot of hope for the UK economy. There's lots of things that we've already talked about: advanced manufacturing, creative industries. If any of you get the chance, I would certainly go and have a look at Burberry and their headquarters in Victoria. They are an amazing company doing great things in China. And to Mike's point about media changing things, they have switched about 40% of their advertising into social media and online. And I was talking to them about this when I went to see them recently, and they said, yes, but we're actually thinking, we have this sort of social media division where they sort of monitor what happens on Facebook and the different websites about how their brand is presented, and they sort of maintain it constantly. They said, we're actually thinking about disestablishing that division. We think we should scrap it. And I said, well, why would you do that? Isn't it a great success? And they said, well, we've realised that there's no point in having a division that says social media. Everybody in the company's got to do it. Everybody's got to be responsible for what's said about us on Facebook. Advertising is becoming viral. So if we pigeonhole it, we actually lose momentum and lose our ability to be on top of it, which I thought was an amazing bit of forward thinking and quite a brave thing to do. The other thing I don't think we should ignore is that there is a fantastic engine for growth in the UK, which we're sitting in the middle of, and which I think is at some risk of attack, and it's the City of London. It's been demonised because of its role in the banking crisis, but the city is about much more than 6 or 7 big institutions. Half of all the people who work in the city work for companies that have fewer than 250 employees. So it is a bit of a SME factory, really. It also contributes, last year it contributed about 15% of UK's tax revenues. Last year, 2010, which was quite a bad year for the city in terms of tax revenues, it still contributed 57 billion. That's a little bit more than the entire budget of the education department. So the square mile that you're sitting in pays for the UK's education. It's under attack for a variety of reasons. Paris and Frankfurt would love to get the square mile onto the continent. The Tobin tax which is going to be discussed at the G20 today and tomorrow, would fall unjustly upon the city, I think, or disproportionately on the city. Unjustly might be a different question. So it's under attack, and I did a fringe conference meeting at the Lib Dems conference, which is an experience I wouldn't really care to repeat, with Vince Cable. And it was all about rebalancing the economy. And I was sort of chairing this thing, and I said as a joke, one way to rebalance the UK economy, of course, would be if you decide you can't grow the bits outside financial services, that you could close the city and it'd be rebalanced overnight. And most of the audience said, yeah, it's a really, really forward-thinking, good idea. So I think we have to be very careful about demonising the city, attacking one of the things that Britain is very, very good at. And I think it was very telling to me that David Cameron, on his way down to the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Australia, gave one press conference on the plane, and what he spoke about was the threat to the city. So I think it is percolating through. It's had a terrible time and done some terrible things during the financial crisis, but boy, is it important to the UK and the UK's growth.